All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name. Can you guys hear me?
In just a second, Mr. Hoon, if we can mute everybody who's not speaking, including me. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Prosper Charles, and I will be the moderator for this program today. I'm an adjunct professor here at Tuskegee at the School of Political Science and International Relations. I'm also a professor, researcher at the School of Economics at the University of Quisqueya, whose president is going to share his thought with us today. The way this show is going down today is very simple. First, I will introduce Mr. Benson G. Balsen, who is a student here at Tuskegee. He will then introduce Dr. Jackie Lumark, the president of Quisqueya. And Mr. Lumark will talk for about 20 minutes or so. And then we will take questions from the chat, or someone can raise their hand to talk about, because we love to hear your voice, guys. We would like that to be an interaction among peers, among friends. And then I will hand it over to Dr. Thiam to conclude. So thank you, Tuskegee, for organizing this event and for including Haiti in the celebration of Black History Month in the United States. Because you see, for us Haitian, it is Black History Month every day, every month. In fact, I wonder if there could be Black History Month without Haiti. The great Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, and many other giants in the African-American community knew who we were and what Haiti represented for the Black race. Unfortunately, and because of our current state of degradation and failure, new generations of Black Americans seem to look down on us, seem to look down on this once glorious nation that changed race relationship forever. Our conversation today will be about that and much more. So without further delay, let me introduce you to Berson Givalsin, who was born and raised in Haiti. After finishing high school, due to his great capacity and his passion for agriculture, which is the main activity practiced by his family, he obtained a full scholarship to go to Costa Rica at Earth University, where he completed his bachelor degree in agricultural science in 2020. His passion for education convinced him to continue his studies, and he joined Tuskegee University for his master's degree in plant and soil science that same year. His passion to help farmers with good quality agriculture, manage agricultural management practices to maximize their productions. Anyway, without further delay, Mr. Valsen, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Sean. It's an honor for me today to present Dr. Jackie Lumark, a former leader in Haiti in the private higher education level in my country. It's an honor for me today to present you in this great activity leading by Tuskegee University. Jackie Lumark has been the president of University of Quisqueya, the leading private university in Haiti, since 2007. He has also served as vice president of AUF, a university, Francophone university agency, a consortium of more than 1,000 universities around 100 countries from 2008 to May 2017, and president of the Conference of Rectors and president of Caribbean Universities from 2012 to 2019. He also served as board member of various scientific committees in Canada, Europe, and the Caribbean. Mr. Lumak has pursued both an academic career in various Haitian and foreign scientific institutions and has international consulting in the field of education, economics, management, both in his country and for international organizations like World Bank and IDB. He assisted the Haitian government in the private sector in designing important policy reform and creating new institutions such as the Investment Felicitation Center, IGC, the National Council of Free Zone, the Direction of Free Zone, Haiti Tech, a technical vocational school, and the National School of Technology, a higher institution of education depending on the Ministry of Education in Haiti. He played an important role in the education system and was in charge of writing the National Plan of Education from 1996 to 2006. The strategic plan for the reconstruction of the Haitian education system after the January 2010 earthquake. He also designed the national reform of the technical education sector and of the secondary education sector. As a special advisor to the President Prival and the chairman of various presidential commissions between 2007 and 2010. He helped design important policy reform in various areas like justice, education, cultural heritage, constitution, competitiveness, information technology, security. Mr. Lumak is a mathematician. He got his degree from University of Toulouse in France, and he taught mathematics at the State University of Haiti for 20 years. He held also a PhD in education from University of Paris in France and an MBA in University of Nice, also in France. He held a bachelor degree in common law at University of Lyon in France and the diploma of École supérieure d'Haïti with the specialization in math and physics. Finally, Dr. Lumak is a member of Inter-American Dialogue, and in partnership with the institution, he has just created Think Haiti, a new Haitian think tank affiliated to University of Kiskeya. This was a summary of the great achievement made by Dr. Jackie Lumak, and we have the pleasure to welcome here in these great activities. Thank you.
Dr. Lumak, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Person. Thank you, Prosper. I'm really happy to be here. And I want to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to speak at Tuskegee University back in Summer this year. Certainly, it is for me an honor to participate at this event. But I would say also that I consider this as a tribute to all Haitians, being the first one of my community to receive such an invitation. For many of you who are listening to me this afternoon, when you hear about Haiti, the same litanies ring in your ears. Failed state, poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, most corrupt country, most unstable country, most this, most that, and the list goes on. Many of you probably might think, Haiti, this is a lost country, a nation without purpose, maybe a shame to our race. To activists from certain Western Indian colonies showing desire for independence, they are answered, look at Haiti next door. Is this what you dream of becoming? And even some Haitians abroad, embarrassed by the condition of Haiti today, prefer to present themselves as Jamaicans or West Indians. Our first peasants landing on the coast of Florida, I remember during the 80s, choose to present themselves as French people, even though they did not know a single word of this language. A question, who is this mother vis-a-vis whom sons and daughters find it so difficult to assume their affiliation. Yes, today, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Today, whatever indicator we consider, the news is not good. Maybe we are the only nation not subjected to have experienced this growing descent into poverty. Some examples. You know that from 1960s to 2020, the GDP per capita passed from $1,500 to $1,168. That means a total aggregate change negative of -21. Today, approximately 25% of Haitians are living with less than $1 a day. Today, half of the Haitian population is suffering from food insecurity. 85% of young people aged between 15 and 24 are totally illiterate. Child mortality rate is high, 31.4 per 1,000. Half of Haitians living today has no access to drinking water. Only 36% of us have access to energy. And if we mention the world sector, in all areas, there are only 11% with access to energy. More than 65% of Haitians today don't have access to sanitary facilities. And access to housing with sustainable materials is only 60%. And rural areas, it is as low as 41%. And in addition to these limitations, Haiti is today among the countries with the greatest inequity in the hemisphere, with a Gini coefficient of 61. The richest 20% of our population holds 65% of our total wealth, while the poorest 20% holds only hardly 1%. And to complicate things, the last 3 decades have been particularly trying, with a combination of disasters of all kinds, natural disasters, but also man-made disasters. More than 20 hurricanes and devastating floods, seven coups d'etat, a cholera epidemic introduced by UN soldiers and which caused more than 10,000 deaths, 2 major earthquakes with more than 300,000 deaths, COVID-19. And if we want to mention the last 3 years, mass assassinations, not to mention regular and massive deportations by the USA of thousands of migrants trying to escape a life of hell. Really, there's a problem here. And to complicate things, the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse on July 21 has created an exceptional situation where there is no constitutional provision to provide for his replacement. The 3 branches of power, executive, legislative, and judiciary, are totally dysfunctional. The current prime minister, chosen by the international community, has 0 legitimacy to take the major decisions that could get the country out of this impasse. Only a real political dialogue, unfortunately absent from the culture of our elites, would make it possible to resolve this exceptional crisis. Our police today are infested with gangsters at the highest level and at all levels of the hierarchy, which explains why they are unable to cope with the many who control almost half of the territory. The last 2 elections had a very low turnout, and both were influenced by the international community, who had to pick the chosen one. And finally, more than 20,000 of migrants trying to escape the Haitian hell have been deported back from the US to Haiti. This is quite as many as deportations ordered by the last 3 US presidents combined. Who are these sons and daughters who are ashamed of such a beautiful mother? Beautiful mother, you say? Yes, yes, beautiful mother. And this is the paradox of today. This is the paradox I'm trying to introduce to you today. The paradox of what I call the Haitian condition. The Haitian condition is surely part of the general human condition, but it is a singularity of the human condition, a singularity caught in the paradox of two contradictory forces, one of which is carried by the impetus of a breath to the birth of the new nation, announcing a new project of humanity, breaking with the dominant world order in the West. And the other, marked by what we could call the chronic deterioration of our current situation. Let us see in more details these two forces in action. You know, Haiti was born against the tide of the existing world order, a world order based on colonialism and slavery, and which largely explains the accumulation of wealth that makes the glory of the West today. When you hear the news from Haiti, you probably think this is a lost country, a nation with no purpose, a shame to our race. It was not always like that. 2 centuries ago, when Haiti proclaimed its independence after defeating 3 European armies, the Spanish, British, and the French, she was the pride of her kind, the strongest argument against racism and the example to follow. After 300 years of servitude, a mass of enslaved human beings decides to conceive their existence in a new type of relation to life, freedom or death, liberté ou la mort, freedom or death. Fighting in turn against the English, the Spaniards, they ended defeating the largest army in Europe, the Napoleon army, and they found the first nation of slaves in all human history. It was, for me, the end signal of slavery as the dominant mode of wealth creation in the Western world. Even if the pronouncement of this judgment had to wait almost 30 years for England with the abolition law, the 28th August of 1833, 40 years for France with the abolition law in 27 April 1848, and more than 60 years for the United States in June 1865. And sometimes when I hear historians saying that there were 2 or 3 great revolutions in the world, the French Revolution in 1789, the American Revolution in 1777, and the Haitian Revolution in 1804, I'm inclined to tell myself that these historians do not really see that the only real rupture in the world order with regard to human rights is in the Haitian Revolution, and in the Haitian Revolution only, punto. How can a revolution based on popular consent against slavery end up today with a situation where most of the population is still in under the tap of slavery? Having created this new situation of fait accompli, Haitians are looking to other nations to help them in the fight for freedom. Remember, in 1815, we find Haiti alongside South America in the struggle against Spanish colonialism. Simon Bolivar came to Haiti looking for support to fight against Spanish colonialism. Alexandre Pétion president, gave vital assistance, money, weapons and ammunition, and soldiers to Simon Bolivar that enabled him to relaunch his campaign for South American independence. Alexander Pétion demanded as payment that the planter aristocrats declare slavery in his homeland abolished, which he did on his return to South America. Remember, in 1808, you find again Haitians alongside the Dominican Republic, yes, in the struggle against Spanish colonialism. Haiti is alongside Mexico in 1818 in the struggle against Spanish colonialism. We are with the Greeks struggling against Turkish occupation in 1821. We are with the Belgians in the fight for independence in 1830. And shall we remember with you, Americans, that in 1773, about 1,500 mulattoes and freed blacks, led by Count Charles-Henri d'Estaing, went to the US in Savannah to fight for the independence of this country, of your country. Remember that among the volunteers was the young Henri Christophe, who became one of Haiti's independence heroes. So the Haitian condition is the difficult to admit mix between the perspective of a new project of humanity based on full freedom in law and in fact, and the current nightmare today we are living in Haiti. Let's see how this dream has been stolen. Remember, the Soviet Union had one iron curtain, which fortunately doesn't exist anymore. But Haiti has three curtains: a curtain of lies, a curtain of hatred, and a curtain of indifference. For 2 centuries, the Haitian people have been resisting their two enemies: the former colonialism we name today international community, and the repugnant elite dominating the Haitian society today. They are both as powerful as cruel. Let's say one about this international community. Those who have made slavery the socio-economic system of the continent were not going to accept that situation of fait accompli without reacting. And so little by little, the propaganda machine, with the help of our internal repugnant elite, transformed Haiti from a beacon of light to an object of shame. Today, most Haitians and more observers outside Haiti begin to understand that today's nightmare has its roots not only in our internal own contradiction, but also in the complex relationship that the country has always had with what we call the international community. Let's start with the status of Haiti as a nation recognized on the international scene. The United States waited almost 60 years before recognizing Haiti's independence, despite the excellent trade between the two countries during this period. And on April 17, 1825, an ordinance of Charles X, King of France, demanded the payment of an indemnity of 150 million francs in exchange for the recognition of Haiti's independence. 100 million francs is the equivalent of 10 years of tax revenue for the country. In today's money, it is the equivalent of 21 billion US dollars. Haiti would take almost 150 years to extinguish this debt. We have also experienced three American occupations: 1915 until 1935, 1914, and 204. Each time, right after the American troops left, the situation became worse than before. From 1993 to the present day, Haiti has experienced 6 peacekeeping missions, with all of them a mandate to improve stability and to strengthen democratic institutions and rule of law. Today, despite the tens of billions that these missions have cost, the result is a real disaster. It is often repeated that Haiti is the most economically assisted country in the region. This is true. Only if you look at the amounts that have been and still are being mobilized within the framework of this cooperation. It is less so if we look closely at how this money has been used. First, they said it's not always relevant. That is to say, it does not address the real causes that could help Haiti get out of the cycle of poverty. Then most of the resources mobilized in this cooperation will not reach the Haitians and will be largely consumed in the Washington Beltway study firms and in those thousands of international NGOs whose action has zero impact on development. That's why I like to repeat that they said this aid is more about Haiti than for Haiti. Resources are not designed to be spent in Haiti, not for Haiti, but about Haiti. We have to get out of this cycle of illusions and falsehoods. Now, the other part of the scene, this corrupt elite. The situation in Haiti is not only the consequence of a long practice of poor public governance. It is also, we have to recognize it, the result of a class of irresponsible elites totally disconnected from Haitian reality, maybe who consider that Haiti is the factory that should bring in only money, but not a place to live, because this elite spend its weekends in Florida or in Dominican Republic. It seeks medical care in Florida, sends kids to school in Florida. We're talking about a rentier economy that has been developed where the economic elite needs the government as a cash cow to the exclusion of the rest of the population, in particular the poor and peasants. Today, my friend, daily life in Haiti is dominated by this small economic elite and a few hundred politicians, all of them totally disconnected from the rest of society. The chaos that Haitians live under the influence of gangs, facing a state paralyzed by corruption and which no longer provides any service to citizens, this chaos is the result of this plot, let's call it plot, between politicians and the small economic elite. Still, having said this, is there any hope? This situation is difficult today and does not seem to allow any hope. But as I used to say, the story is not over. We must say to ourselves that the nation, this nation, which created this fait accompli of a planet without legally recognized slaves, this nation that created the dream of a possible humanity, of citizens of full freedom, this nation cannot end like this in the decline. This address to you, brothers and sisters, is to help us lift the curtain of indifference so you can see, and so we can see us also, our real face and understand and support our struggle to regain our lost sovereignty and to ensure that this, what I call this hidden diamond that is Haiti, can shine in the face of the world today. Thank you for your attention. Berson, I give the floor back to you for follow-up.
Thank you, Dr. Lemarque. This is incredible. This is a call for actions. To understand and help Haiti in this struggle, you have to understand this is a story of resistance. Brothers and sisters, it is very hard to understand Haiti today if you do not understand Haiti's story. If you don't understand Haiti's ideal, what was that country dream? What was that country purpose in this world? There are certainly many of you who will say, well, it has been so long ago. Why other countries in the region, such as the Dominican Republic, for instance, could take off, yet Haiti is lagging? How do you answer this, Dr. Lemar?
Well, this is a question of concern for all Haitians. In every circle, we have always been debating. Remember that Haiti occupied the Dominican Republic for 22 years. And when the Dominican are celebrating the Day of Freedom, it's when the Haitians left the Dominican. But most of people forget that we went there to guarantee that slavery would not come back to the Dominican Republic. And so it was a movement of solidarity to make sure that this island can live with zero slaves. And, you know, I remember that, you know, during the 60s, and listen, from the 1960 to today, the real output per capita of the Dominican Republic has been multiplied by 3 at the same moment. The real output per capita for Haiti has declined by half. You know, many scholars mention instability. Do you remember during the first century after independence, the Dominican Republic were more unstable than Haiti. And before the 60s, GDP in Haiti was higher than the Dominican Republic. When tourist development was burgeoning in the Dominican Republic, they went to Haiti to seek for experts, employees, managers. We have had 2 dictators who played different roles: the Trujillo Balaguer dictatorship and the Duvalier dictatorship. And I think that's where the conditions for this distinction took birth. Duvalier fighting against, you know, everyday permanent revolution, destroying the economy, decapitalizing the human resources basis of the country, because most of intellectuals, teachers, professors went to Africa, in the country. The first brain drain of the country started with Duvalier. And at the same moment, Trujillo Balaguer take the opportunity to consolidate infrastructures, to guarantee stability, and to make the country attractive to foreign direct investment. Haiti has never been in a position to be attractive to foreign direct investment. And even if you have a government that would be animated by the notion of public interest, which is not a dominant notion in Haiti, you would not find sufficient resources with no foreign direct investment. Today, foreign direct investment in the Dominican Republic reach more than $4 or $5 billion a year. Haiti doesn't get $100 million of foreign direct investments. And so I think the answer we have to find is in governance. Governance, but also it's a result of this plot I was mentioning before. An elite that doesn't invest in production, an elite that doesn't invest in technology, an elite that invests its money in trade to make rapid money. And that's why they consider Haiti as a factory. They're not living in Haiti. They don't consider that Haiti is their country. This is the country where you make money. But real life, you make real life in Dominican Republic and in Florida. I think the fight for Haiti today is the fight for a governance where credible, competent people get into the arena of the political scene and start thinking that governments is to serve public interest, to guarantee stability and to make the country attractive to foreign direct investment. And for Haiti, I said, there's another notion into this with Haiti. We have 1 million Haitians living abroad. This diaspora used to send us now almost $4 billion. This is the most important donors for Haiti, before World Bank, USAID, and all the donors combined. Why can we dream of this force as, a human force investing in Haiti to make money? Why can't we mobilize this force as a force of expertise to assist Haiti in its development agenda? Why can't we also use this force as a screen or a shield when bad public policies from Washington or State Department influence negatively the situation in Haiti? And maybe if we get this connection with Haitian diaspora, this connection will encourage more African Americans to look at Haiti differently, to see that our motherland needs us. We'll start investing also in Haiti. We'll make money with you. We'll become rich together. And then this signal will have a drawing effect where, any American investor can imagine to invest in Haiti. I say we are at 130 minutes from Florida, and we are so close of the richest nation of the world, who accept that we still are the poorest nation of the hemisphere. That's not normal. We Asians have the mission to get into the scene of the United States and to force you to share prosperity. But there's a way to do so. It won't be done by charity. Development never occurs through charity, but through business, to investment. It's to us Asians to create the conditions of stability, of good governance, but also of sovereignty first, so that a president, a prime minister doesn't take order from an embassy, doesn't take order from the State Department, but negotiate responsibly with you and accept that Haiti can have its own development agenda in friendship with the United States. That is a possible dream.
Wonderful. Mr. Michael Jackson asked, what are effective ways can African American, can we support Haiti? Can Americans support Haiti?
Well, to start reckoning the facts, beyond the present, you have to look at the long trend. That's what I call the paradox of the Asian condition, between the nightmare of today and the dream of a country that created freedom. Sometimes, don't be angry when I say that, my fellow Americans, don't be angry when I say that. I used to say, if it were not for Haiti today, Obama would never be at the White House. President Obama would be in a plantation with wife and children. The only reason, Haitian only created that possibility to Obama to avoid plantation because of this commitment, freedom or death. And so I need Americans to recognize the fact and to say the Haiti that is being showcased through the media is not the real Haiti. Let's look beyond the scene to discover what the real Haiti is. And so let's also take into consideration that the fight for the promotion of the African-American cause must start in Haiti. We cannot avoid Haiti because it's part of it's your mother here. It's part of your own history. Don't let the rest of the world say that this is the example of having fought for freedom. Freedom is compatible with happiness, with development. And I think Afro-Americans can play a role by getting more interested to Haiti, getting to know more our history, beyond the scope of CNN, beyond the official declarations of United Nations and other, partners. Let's get to know each other, and let's start to remake the story. Haiti is I'm serious, and I'm really convinced that Haiti is a diamond. This diamond is hidden under garbage. Let's put out the garbage and make this diamond shine at the face of the world. We, today, Haitians, cannot accomplish that by ourselves because we are in front of two big, strong enemies, our own repugnant elite, not considering themselves as real Haitians, and what I call this international community, which is not completely at ease with Haiti and its story. Haiti is a bad example for everyone, for British, for Americans, for French, a bad example to you.
Yes, and I will add, Dr. Jackie, that what we are seeing today, I mean, we want people to understand this is a country born out of resistance. It's like a country who do not want to be ruled by whoever. And right now, at this moment, we have a group of international actors called the core group who quote unquote are ruling Haiti. Dr. Jackie, Dr. Luma, can you talk about the core group?
Well, the core group is an illegal cooperative, of ambassadors from United States, Canada, Germany. I don't think it has any legal status. It was just established at the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake, when donors were invited to contribute to the reconstruction of Haiti through what they call the Commission for Reconstruction, piloted by President Clinton. And so I think all donors who had committed to more than $100,000 million would be qualified to be part of the core group. Today, Japan is not part of the core group. Dominican Republic is not. Cuba is not. Mexico is not. And these core groups have been constituted themselves into a force of proposal, into a force of decision making. Look at just after the death of President Jovenel Moïse, who decided who would be prime minister? It's not Haitians. It's not an interpretation of our law or tradition. The prime minister has been picked by the international community with just a tweet. With a tweet to decide who would run a country. They have been present in influencing elections. And I used to say, let the Haitians choose their elected officials. If they make a bad choice, they'll suffer from it. They will pay for it, but they will learn from it. And then they will do better choice next. But when every time the president is picked by a group of ambassadors, what's the lesson for Haiti? And each time you choose not the best one. We never choose the best one. And so give us a chance to make our own choice, to do our own errors and to pay for them. And
there's a question.
If they do that, you will not be a burden to them. I don't know if they are comfortable with Haiti being a burden. They are always seeking money, international sense, collecting money to support Haiti after earthquake, after flood. You are comfortable with many Haitians flooding the Florida coast with boat people. No, that's not what you want. It's less than 2 hours of flight between these two nations should give way to another logic of cooperation, not to charity. I'm going to be provocative. I would even consider closing USAID. Why do you want to give charity? Why an agency that depends on the Department of International Relations? That means more politically oriented than development oriented. I would prefer to have relations with the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Education, the Department of Trade, so that there's a flow of direct communication, real capacity building. But when you mobilize billions, millions of dollars through projects where money come back to Washington to pay consultants, to pay big overhead, what's the lesson for each of us? You know, Haiti is a pretext for mobilization of resources that are not dedicated to help Haiti succeed in its agenda of development. We have to stop this. It's illusion and falsehood.
Yeah, and I will add that there is no country ever developed from charity. So there's a question from Dr. Tillman. He asked, is there a political movement in Haiti to influence France to consider repaying the money that Haiti had to pay to remain an independent nation?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any movement?
I don't know any one of them, but maybe outside the country, there are small movement. I remember that President Haiti tried to organize a solid movement, but it was not professionally organized. It was through popular mobilization. And I would say that he paid the price for that. The coup d'etat against Haiti was mostly motivated by the anger provoked by Western world. It would be a bad example for France, but not only for France, but for other big powers in the same conditions. But this is not a dead issue. At any moment, I think you will find Afro-American organizations, including European organization, American organization, that take that issue and put it forward, but in a responsible way, not through violence, not through protest, but through law. France, for example, recognized that slavery was a crime against humanity, what they call the Taubira law. And it's a good step. It's a good step in that direction. This is an issue that needs to be examined responsibly, professionally, with in the framework of law, what the law permits, not through violent protest.
And about coup d'etat, whenever there is a Haitian government who raise that issues, there is a coup d'etat. I will tell you, in the history of Haiti, there have been at least 71 covert action by CIA or the CIA, who ended up in probably more than 23 coup d'etat. And ladies and gentlemen, each coup d'etat has the potential to set a country back for 20 years. So imagine now after 200 years with 23 coup d'etat, over 71 covert action to create instability. Imagine Haiti right now. So there's a question from Dr. Luma, actually from Dr. Mark Pou. He said, thank you for your thoughtful presentation. What can you tell us about the Petro-Caribbean money?
Oh, when I saw this project, I was very happy to see it because this was the first genuine scheme of international aid for Haiti, where there would no conditionality imposed by the donors. Do you know that through the mechanism of conditionality, most donations never conclude, they never land. And you define a project with X billion dollars, and you put a certain number of conditionality that the country can never accomplish, and the money is frozen. And 2 years after, you say that you bring fresh money to Haitians. The Petro-Caribbean was a genuine scheme of cooperation through the mechanism of buying petrol and paying after, and that created a lot of resources available to Haitian government for development. But unfortunately, the leaders picked by the United States of America were not ready to think public interest, were not responsible leaders. And what they did, they organized themselves to spoil the money for themselves, for families, for friends. And it was a complete disaster. And what could have been the best example of success story in cooperation ended in a nightmare, but because of Haitians themselves. It's not the compensation when I say that, but the only compensation would be, yes, it was spoiled by Haitian leaders, the Haitian government, but those leaders had not been Haitian choice. You chose for us, those Haitians. And then today, the country is facing the difficulty to guarantee impunity. Impunity is the most important burden today for democracy and for development. There's a coalition of people involved in any kind of crimes, financial crime, political crimes, general crimes, and that gather themselves in a hidden force that will maintain the status of impunity.
Yes, and that's a big part of the story of Haiti, is a story of corruption. And that corruption is not only Haitian corruption, it's corruption financed and supported by the international community. So another question for you, Dr. Dr. Lemarque. What are some ways that are being used to change the negative narrative now about Haiti? How do you change that conversation about corruption, about money, about that? How do you create a new perception of Haiti?
Well, let's take the example of corruption. When I talk about corruption, I used to say there is no corruption in Haiti. Don't be shocked. There are more corruption in Dominican Republic than Haiti. Corruption is systemic. Corruption requires a machinery, a very sophisticated building of systems, norms, procedures to escape regulations. That means intelligence. In the case of Haiti, people don't take that kind of precaution. They are open thieves. I call that in French what I call des voleurs de grand chemin. It's not corruption. Corruption it requires a certain degree of sophistication to hide what you're doing. Nobody's hiding. Yeah, you get the money directly from the Minister of Finance into an account, and everybody knows that. Every civil servant knows that. They see you. We see you doing this. We cannot impede you. And after you've done this, you are not accountable for that. That's a big problem. Okay. And perception, how to change perception? Change reality first. We have to admit that the reality is not a good example of what IT should show. We have to change reality. But to be able to change reality, we ask you, please give us the chance to shape ourselves, our own reality. Don't come here as an international force to tell us that we should federate the gangs. In the United States, no, do you see the Minister of Justice would facing the gangs in Chicago, trying to federate the gangs and to make them a counterpart in public policy decision? You would mobilize all the law enforcement capacities at your disposal to do that. And why is not conceivable in the States and you want to impose just a scheme like that? And so, yes, we need to change reality, but we need to change also the rapport with the international community who assist us, who want to make capacity building, who want to show us rule of law, who want to strengthen democratic institutions. After doing this for more than 30 years, we're in bad shape. We have been worse than before. And so leave us alone. Leave us alone.
Anyway, Dr. Lemarque, it seems like we have never really seen a Haitian rule, right? Since 1804, I mean, the people who have been really ruling the country have been quote unquote puppets, whose capacity to decision making are not really in Haiti, but from the ex-masters or still masters now. So, I mean, what you're trying to say is the international community need to let Haitian rule Haiti. And to do that, but right now it's very difficult. And I think that's why you are seeing a lot of social unrest in Haiti, because the people capacity, the people ability to resist is incredible. I mean, one of the leaders of Haiti, Dessalines, when he realized that even after they got Haitian liberty, Haiti was independent, and the French wanted to come back, he said, I will give you the country until I burn it down. And somehow that mentality still stays in Haiti. Haiti does not want to be ruled by anyone. They think they are in Haiti, they know better than anyone, they know the situation, and they have the formula to get this country out of poverty. But yet the last coup d'etat happened in Haiti in 2004, which quote unquote was more or less the most democratically elected president of Haiti. So how do you stop that from happening in the future? Right now, I know we are talking about election that quote unquote supposed to happen this year. And that election will be financed quote unquote by the international community money. Then how do you prevent them from taking decisions for you when they are financing your politics?
Prosper, do you remember how a normal Haitian qualified Haitian peasant? We call him someone outside. Mun andoyo. When you qualify someone outside from what? Outside from basic services, outside from education, from income, from employment, from basic health, from everything. That means you have a small center of a few tens of thousands of people or families with the illusion that they can have what they call the pearl of the Antilles, la perle des Antilles. It's a pearl for only a small group of 10,000 families living the West, the majority of Haitians behind the scene, outside the scene. I think this is the illusion I've had for the last 2 centuries, thinking that we can create a country, forgetting the majority of them, relegating them outside the country. Now, what I'm living is that they show that they exist. They are there. They cannot stay anymore in the borderline. They're going to stay anymore in the remote rural areas. They're coming to Port-au-Prince. They build shanty towns. They create gangs. They invite themselves violently, but with the intention to be part of the cake. They want their part of the cake. And we have to reimagine a country, not a country for a group of 10% of families that live between Miami and Haiti, that a country where the state gives guarantee the basic service to all citizens, free education. How can you accept in a so poor country that 80% of students in basic schools are in private school, where that cost families up to 30% of their annual income just to pay for education fees? That's not democracy. That's provocation. Okay, and the same pattern occurs for health, for income, from without respect. And so Haitian elite have to stop wishing the illusions that they can create a country by excluding the majority of Haitians. That's the main issue today. We have to imagine Haiti for 12 million Haitians, not for 1 million, not for 100,000. And that's what is being worked today, a little brutally. That was the creation of gang, of instability, of whatever you think as element of this chaos. We are at this crossroad now. Either we decide to imagine a country for all of us, or no country at all. That's the message I receive when I see so much violence, so much instability, so much provocation that makes Haiti appear to be ungovernable.
And I will conclude by saying, before I even hand it over to Dr. Thiem, about one thing I would say: the Black Lives Matter movement actually has its origin in Haiti.
Yeah.
And I will always say that Haitians showed the world that Black Lives Matter since 1804. And now Haiti is in a situation where we need our Black or African-American brothers and sisters, not only to understand what's going on, but to help us design a way, probably to influence State Department policy or what have you, because one of the main things that keep us in the situation is the foreign policies of countries that we do not have control, or countries who somehow want to dominate. And Haiti will always stay like that, in that situation of trouble, of turmoil, because people will resist. Even if it's one individual that stays in Haiti, it will resist. So, Dr. Jackie Lamarck, what positive message would you give to finish to the African-American brothers and sisters here who are listening?
Well, I'm saying that I have a lot of hope for Haiti. I see again that this country, that created this fait accompli of a world today without legally recognized slaves, this nation that created the dream of a new project of humanity with citizens with full freedom. This country cannot end like this. Well, that's why the story is not over. That's why I address again you, brothers and sisters, Afro-Americans, help us lifting the curtain of indifference so that together we can show our real face, but also engage in a struggle with us to regain our sovereignty and to ensure, I repeat it again, that this hidden diamond that is Haiti can shine in the face of the whole world today. That's my final message.
Thank you, President Lamarck. Dr. Thiam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Lamarck, for what has been a truly thoughtful conversation. And thank you also, Dr. Prosper, for moderating this. I would also like to acknowledge some people on the call, including some of our deans. I see Dean Prakash, I see Dean Bell, I also see Dean Jelani. I also would like to acknowledge our friends from Vanderbilt who are on this call, Vanderbilt University. And then stay tuned, don't go anywhere, because there's a chance to win a raffle of $500 as a voucher. And this is the time I take to announce our next event. Tomorrow, we actually hope to see everyone for what would be another great conversation on Macon County health and wealth from our own folks over here at 1 p.m. And then at 3 p.m., we have a Fit and Fabulous by our own Rejoice Spencer. So Dr. Collier, please take it away. Dr. Collier, you are muted. Let me call.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the TU Chair. And we have a bunch of breakout rooms available for you. And in one of the breakout rooms, there is a $500 travel voucher. So please stick around. We have people from Italy in one of the breakout rooms. We have people from IES Abroad. We have people from the Peace Corps. So if you're interested in actually going to Haiti and working, you can learn about the Peace Corps. We have, and I also have a colleague here, Fairley, who does work on Haiti. So it's good to see you. We have people from Mexico, if you're interested in going to Mexico and learning about occupational therapy, pre-health professionals. All of these are in the chat here. If you see that, they're all here. We have people from California, Redlands here. We have the trip on Paris and Italy, that's EF Tours. We have internships abroad with API, that's Brad. Let's see, if you want to click on, we have Lucy, who's with the National Student Exchange. If you want to exchange with any university in the United States, you can do that for a semester long. We have our partners from Webster University, but all these are in the chat, so you can click on those and visit those to find out any information about study abroad. And stick around, check out one of those rooms for a $500 voucher. Check out the rooms, $500 travel voucher for one lucky person. So stick around. And thank you, Dr. Lumar, for being here today. I don't know if Italy is still around, but I was in Italy this summer and we saw the place where one of the former queens of Haiti was interred with her two daughters in Pisa. They had first moved to London and then they were exiled to Pisa, Italy. So the Haitian Revolution and Haitian history is global history and is worldwide. And there's so much to learn about Haiti. And it's not a tragic Haiti at all. It's a global history that impacts us so much more than what we think of. So thank you for bringing that to us in a powerful presentation. Also, please, everyone, click on those links there, here, and visit the different rooms, get that $500 travel voucher. Thank you, Dr. Chom. I'm gonna stick around here, so if anybody has questions about the rooms, let me know, but we're here. Thank you, Dr. Chom. Thank you, Dr. Prospero, and thank you, Dr. Lumarque. And thank you, Bersan. Wonderful introduction.
Thank you, and I'll stick around too for a minute.
Okay, thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. Lumar.
My pleasure.
And we hope to bring you in person soon. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Prosper. We'll catch up. Bye.
So do we just click on any of the links?
Right, click on any of the links. Do you still have access to those?
Yeah.
And Saya and Crystal, you guys should be going to your assigned rooms. Dr. Appleby, you should be going to your place.
I don't know if you assigned me or you sent me who I'm supposed to go to.
Yeah, I sent you in the email. I sent you where you're supposed to go and you click on that link.
Oh, okay.
No.
Did you just send the links, or we just click on the links on which ones we're interested in, Dr. Carter?
Click on the links of which one you're interested in. Dr. Bratton, they're in the chat.
Thank you.
I'll put them in the chat again.
Hi, everybody. You muted, Rhonda.
Do you have a question? Does anybody need a place to go?
What is the which way is the African American Museum at?
That would be Webster. That would be Webster. So you want to go to Webster. That would be, let me see. That'd be Jennifer Dickey Webster. Do you see that one?
No, ma'am.
Jennifer Dickey Webster. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull it out for you here. It's in the middle of this one that I'm going to copy down here for you. I don't even see it. It's in the text of the, it's underneath, there's Kenyatta, Andrea, Courtney. I'll have to get it from another place. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, that was for Africa and African America.
Excuse me, Dr. Collier. I was just wanting to see if you could send the link to
Hi there.
the Mexico one. Hi.
Okay. And then if anybody would like to visit API, they actually don't have anybody in there right now. They could use a visitor. This is the one to Mexico. And where is API? Here is, that's why API's link.
Hey, Dr. Collier, I sent you an email. Have you had a chance to look at it?
Yes, I'm kind of multitasking here. Is this Jeremy?
Yes.
Will you do me a favor and visit Mr. Brad Minor real quick? And we will set up a time for next week if you have availability on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay, I have availability on Tuesday.
Okay, okay. Well, I'll email you about the specific time. Would you mind to pop in and say hello to Brad Minor?
Okay.
Yeah, and he can talk to you about internships and scholarships. That's right here, Brad Minor. Send him one your way.
I see him.
Good, good.